Hello Andy, hope you all are doing wonderful preparation. Welcome to our channel Disc Civil Services in Detail, guiding aspirants to become officers. Let's begin our session of The Hindu Current Affairs Analysis and Answer Writing Strategies of Jan 28, 2026 Andy. Let me tell you once again before starting the sessions, whatever important PDFs, content, previous year's questions, most expected questions, relevant maps, notes, whatever we are providing in our official Telegram channel, make sure you have to go through them, at least do 2 or 3 repeated revisions and write it in your current affairs notes Sunday. Those who don't know, our official Telegram channel ID is DISC, disc underscore civil services in detail, only small letters Sunday. So this is the update, and yes, let's begin the session quickly. The most important article of the day, mother of all deals, India and EU finalize free trade agreement. This is a historic moment, largest ever FTA. And since 2007, the negotiations were going on, and finally in 2026, they concluded this FTA. So how does it benefit European Union and how does it benefit India, and what the deal doesn't include and what it is including, and how it is going to change the global value supply chains, as well as what about the global governance, global challenges, cooperations, foreign policy perspective lo ఇది చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఆర్టికల్. మేక్ షూర్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు బి వెరీ థరో విత్ దిస్ కాన్సెప్ట్ బికాస్ ఈ పర్టికులర్ టాపిక్ పైన క్వశ్చన్ లేకుండా క్వశ్చన్ పేపర్ రాదు. పుట్ ఏ 3-4 స్టార్ మార్క్స్ బికాస్ దిస్ ఇస్ ద బిగ్గెస్ట్ ఎవర్ అండ్ దిస్ ఇస్ ద most important free trade agreement which is covering 27 countries, 27 nations in European Union ante. So ప్రైమ్ మినిస్టర్ నరేంద్ర మోడీ గారు ఏం స్టేట్మెంట్స్ చెప్పారు, యూరోపియన్ కమిషన్ ప్రెసిడెంట్ ఉర్సులా గారు ఏం చెప్పారు, కౌన్సిల్ ప్రెసిడెంట్ ఆంటోనియో గారు వాట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ స్టేట్మెంట్స్ దే హ్యావ్ గివెన్, అవన్నీ కూడా మనకి ఇంపార్టెంట్. సో దిస్ ఈస్ అ విన్ విన్ సిచ్యువేషన్స్, 2 global giants coming on one frame platform, and this is the biggest ever signed. This is the mother of all deals and endu cheptunarante this will see European Union drop tariffs on 99.5% of Indian exports to these 27 nations, which I have already mentioned, and India has given tariff concessions on 97.5% of imports from European Union, with European Union wines, luxury cars set to become less expensive, which is because of the result. So how does it help EU? Tariff removed or cut on 90% of these goods. Wine duties cut from 150% to 20 to 30%, spirits cuts to 40%. Car tariffs drops from 110% to 10%. Just imagine the level of drop in the percentages in tariffs. Tariffs eliminated on Airbus aircraft, processed food. 0% tax on most machinery, pharmaceutical products. This is what EU is getting. Now, how it is going to benefit India? Duty-free exports for items such as textiles, leathers, gems, spices, a duty-free quota of 1.6 million tons of steel, as well as easier for skilled Indian workers to work in the 27 country bloc. Dialogue on carbon border tax. India said to be treated like other EU partners, and most importantly phased out tariffs on arms, ammunition and other important goods. Indulo include cheyanivi enti anante no concessions given on items such as chicken and rice, no agreement or government procurement on energy and raw materials, as well as sustainable development chapter edaithe undo that has been rejected by government of India, and agreement on geographical indications of the world. ఇక్కడ మీరు అర్థం చేసుకోవాల్సింది, ఇన్ ద ఎరా ఆఫ్ గ్లోబల్ ఛాలెంజెస్, గ్లోబల్ chaos, the cooperation between 2 global gains, focusing this a huge achievement andy. So let's see, it is strengthening the capability, this partnership at a time of global turmoil, while European Union Commission President Ursula is saying it is going to reduce the strategic dependency at a time when global trade is in increasingly fractious, and most importantly they have delivered the mother of all deals, 2 gains who chose partnership in a true win-win situation, and giving a strong message that cooperation is the biggest answer to global challenges. These kind of statements are highly important for writing beautiful answers in your main Sunday. And this historic agreement will facilitate access to the European market for the farmers, small industries, creating new opportunities in manufacturing and strengthening cooperation in their services. As well as these are the statements given over by our Honorable PM Garu. as well as both sides, however, made sure to exclude their respective sensitive sectors. India's strategic agricultural and dairy sectors remain protected, while European unions will maintain its current tariffs on beef, sugar, rice, chicken, meat, milk product, honey, bananas, soft wheat, garlic, and ethanol. And these stocks, which I already mentioned, started or launched in 2007 following several hiccups and passes. Now finally resumed in 2022, both sides focusing on excluding issues, etc. And in 2026, finally they concluded and signed. So these are the few highlights. According to the Commerce Ministry, India has gained tariff reductions across 97% of tariff lines, covering 99.5% of trade value. Of this 90.7% of India's exports will see duties eliminated entirely on first of the deals. So in the era of టారిఫ్ టర్మ్స్ ఏదైతే టారిఫ్స్ ఉందో, ఈ శాంక్షన్స్ ఉందో, ఇట్లాంటి టైంలో దిస్ ఇస్ ద వన్ విచ్ ఈస్ అ హ్యూజ్ వెల్కమ్ స్టెప్. అదర్ హైలైట్స్ కూడా ఒకసారి చూద్దాం. We'll see other highlights too. Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll first conclude the article and then go to the next one. And these are the continuation. This will include certain marine products, processed food items, arms, ammunition. Over and above this, 6% of India's exports will see tariff reductions, including certain poultry products, preserved vegetables, bakery products, amongst others. And simple Gandhi, what are the products which are going to get this? Adoksa chuskoli. Key labor incentive sectors like which are comprising more than a few crores. Duty free importing between these two nations, zero duty from entry into force of FTA, ఇవన్నీ కూడా ఒకసారి చూసుకోవాలి. Sectors that India primarily exports to the European Union, the following will see duties eliminated entirely. For example ఏంటి, ఇది చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్: marine products, chemicals, plastic and rubber items, leather footwear, textile and apparel, base metals, gems and jewelry, furniture, allied consumer products, toys and sports. On services, European Union has agreed to commitment across 144 services subsectors, including ITs, professional services, educations and others. So these are the few highlights. As well as India agreed to open up one or two subsectors covering European Union priorities, such as professional businesses or professional focuses, services, telecommunications, maritime, financial and environmental services. So this is all about this article. As I already mentioned, this is highly important అండి. ఇంకా డీటెయిల్డ్గా ఎడిటోరియల్లోని క్లియర్ కట్గా వస్తుంది, అప్పుడు చేద్దాం. And this one about Medaram Jatara starts today, 1.50 crore expected. So this is the Asia's biggest tribal congregation. It's chala important from cultural traditional perspective. Evolution of this festival, history enti, what are the pros and cons in maintaining this disaster management perspective లో అరేంజ్మెంట్స్, మెయింటెనెన్స్ ఇవన్నీ కూడా ఒకసారి చూసుకోవాలి. దోస్ హు ఆర్ రైటింగ్ TGPSC, ఇది చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఫర్ బోత్ మెయిన్స్ అండ్ ప్రిలిమ్స్ అండి. యాజ్ ఐ ఆల్రెడీ మెన్షన్, డిజాస్టర్ మేనేజ్మెంట్, కల్చర్, హిస్టరీ, సొసైటీ, ట్రైబల్ స్టడీస్, ట్రైబల్ రెలవెంట్గా ఇవన్నీ కూడా ఇంపార్టెంట్. అది ఒకసారి చూసుకోండి. సో ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎ బైఎన్నియల్ జాతర, మహాజాతర, సమ్మక్క సారక్క జాతర, విచ్ బిగిన్ ఇన్ మేడారం on Wednesday. The traditional procession began from Ponugondla village in Gangaram Mandal of Mahbubabad. So after performing certain customary rituals, tribal priest from the Penaka clan of the Koya tribe starts this escorting deity, husband of presiding deity Samakka, towards Medaram with great ceremonial favor. So procession ఎలా జరుగుతుంది, ఈ ఫెస్టివల్ డేస్లో, ఈ జాతర డేస్లో ఏం జరుగుతుంది, ఇవన్నీ చూసుకోండి. యాజ్ వెల్ as disaster management perspective లో, as again mentioning, this is highly important because they come up with a few 50 bed hospitals కానీ, wristbands for kids కానీ, they are repeatedly reviewing the situations there with all the facilities which people who are coming, or what can be done in best way to control the crowd, etc. ఆ పర్స్పెక్టివ్లో ఒకసారి చూసుకోండి, సరిపోతుంది. వన్స్ అగైన్ ఐమ్ టెల్లింగ్ యూ, మేడారం జాతర ఏదైతే ఉందో ప్రిలిమ్స్కి చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్, మెయిన్స్కి సిగ్నిఫికెన్స్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ అండి. అండ్ ఎస్, ఎర్లీ 8th century తెలుగు ఇన్స్క్రిప్షన్ డిస్కవర్డ్ ఇన్ ఏపీ. ఇది ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ కరెంట్ అఫైర్స్ పర్స్పెక్టివ్లో యాజ్ వెల్ యాజ్ ప్రిలిమ్స్ ఆల్ ఎగ్జామ్స్కి ఇది ఇంపార్టెంట్ అండి. A Telugu inscription dating back to 8th century has been discovered at Pitikayagulla village in Bestaravaripetna Mandalam of Prakasham district, Andhra Pradesh, setting light on the evolution of Telugu language and early published works in this region. And this inscription was engraved on a stone slab. The 4-line inscription reading స్వస్తి శ్రీ నాందేలు వారి చేసిన చెన్సిన వంతు ప్రాణి మిల్లి ఆచారి అని చెప్పి రాసిపెట్టి పాదసిన నవకట్ట అని రాసిపెట్టి this epigraphic is interpreting the inscription as recording the construction of new embankment, that is Navakatta. The work is attributed to Pranimilli Achari, identified as a sculptor or craftsman, indicating the active role of artisans in the public infrastructure during that period. And this reference is believed to dated to a time when Renadu region was under royal administration, although the name of the ruling king is not mentioned in the text. So this is highly important. And this one ikkada image chustunnaru kada, great flamingos are sighted on Hope Island in Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary in the Kakinada Bay of Andhra Pradesh for the first time this season on Tuesday. Ikkada greater flamingos chala important. ఏదైతే IUCN లిస్ట్ ఉందా, ఏంజర్డా, endangered, least vulnerable, so in which category does this flamingos comes? Adi first important point you have to go. And migrations, e-vistings, and what are the challenges and what are the conservation techniques government is taking care for their good, ఇవి ఒకసారి చూసుకోవాలి. as well as locations in news perspective లో హోప్ ఐలాండ్ ఎక్కడుంది, how does it forms, and what are the nearby lakes or rivers, కొరింగా వైల్డ్ లైఫ్ సెంచురీ ఇంపార్టెన్స్ ఏంటి, సిగ్నిఫికెన్స్ ఏంటి, హైలీ ఇంపార్టెంట్ అండి. జస్ట్ గో త్రూ దిస్. దీనికి రెలవెంట్గా నేను ఎంసీక్యూస్ని ఫ్రేమ్ చేసి మన అఫీషియల్ టెలిగ్రామ్ ఛానల్లో పోస్ట్ చేస్తాను, ఆన్సర్ చేయండి. So I'll post questions related to flamingos as well as Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary, nearby lakes and rivers also. And this is something related to 100 years ago, 15 years ago, 50 years ago, Kalinadi vital for South Seas Pond, looking in London. This is 100 years ago. ఒకసారి చూసుకోండి. ఈ ఆర్టికల్ చెప్పడానికి ముందు let me tell you, letters to the editorial are one which gives opinion suggestions. So when you are writing mains, these kind of opinions and suggestions will be helpful to present diverse versions in your answers అండి. దానివల్ల మీకు మల్టీ డైమెన్షనల్ అప్రోచ్ కవర్ అవుతుంది, చాలా హెల్ప్ అవుతుంది, హోలిస్టిక్ అప్రోచ్ ఇవ్వగలుగుతారు. సో లెటర్స్ టు ద ఎడిటోరియల్ చదివి అర్థం చేసుకోవడానికి ట్రై చేయండి. Future of work, India's youth under new course. This is something related to the 4 labor codes which was recently introduced, aiming to promote formalization of employment and improvising this ease of doing business, covering the gap so that it will benefit and bringing major changes. And this statistics has been taken from the article from Periodic Labor Force Survey, PLFS, and this is the one again our chief economic advisor recently mentioned about the employment rates and other shifts and చెప్పి. So this is the one. The labor codes came into force on November 2025, as we have done enough discussion on this, and this is the one which is talking about the composition of employment among the age group 15 to 29 years old, 30 to 59 years old. And what about the demographic advantage India faces at a pronounced youth employment crisis, and what about the others, as well as we have come across this aging factor గురించి ఒక రిపోర్ట్స్ రీసెంట్గా ఆర్బీఐ లాంచ్ చేసినప్పుడు మాట్లాడాం. కేరళ, తమిళనాడు, తెలంగాణ ఆర్ ద స్టేట్స్ విచ్ ఆర్ హ్యావింగ్ హ్యూజ్ నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ ఏజింగ్ పీపుల్ బై 2036 and 2030 అని ఫ్యూ అబ్జర్వేషన్స్ చెప్పాం కదా. సో దీనికి ఇంటర్ కనెక్ట్ చేసి యూ కెన్ రైట్ దీస్ పాయింట్స్ ఇన్ యువర్ మెయిన్స్ ఆన్సర్స్, అండ్ దీస్ ఫ్యాక్ట్స్ ఆర్ highly important for prelims అండి. So by consolidating 29 central laws into 4 codes, the reform aims to simplify complex, universalize minimum wages, expand social protection, and modernize workplace regulations. So policy debates often portray these codes are balancing act between labor flexibility and worker protection. And we have done enough discussion where we are focusing on uneven enforcement, wider interstate variations, crucial most protections, what they are doing in informal sector, formal sectors, gig workers, ivanni telusu. So in 2024, India's median age was under 30 compared to around 42 in China and 50 in Japan. With nearly half the population still young, understanding how these changes affect youth employment is critical. And now they are focusing India facing pronounced youth employment crisis. According to this report 2023-24, labor force participation among those aged between 15 to 29 stood at 46.4%. So gender disparities further widening these gaps, where young women participate in labor force compared to the young men. In urban areas, again, unemployment among young women reach to these levels. ఈ సర్వేస్ చెప్పి ఇక్కడ కాంట్రాక్చువల్ ఇన్సెక్యూరిటీ is also higher among youth అని చెప్పి నీతి ఆయోగ్ ఎస్టిమేట్ which is suggesting that 77 lakh workers were engaged in the gig economy in 2020-21, a figure projected to rise by 2.35 crore by 2029 to 30. So what kind of initiatives you can take to tackle this another ikkada important. Again, this backdrop, the new labor codes aims to promote formalization while improving the ease of doing business. The introduction of a statutory national floor wage could raise earnings for the young workers, and this can be taken again by the requirement of appointment letters for all the workers, guaranteeing wage payments, and even giving leave, strengthening baseline employment securities, etc. So labor market transparency should also be enhanced through mandatory vacancy reportings. And however, there are few challenges. Many provisions are unorganized and gig worker sectors mirroring these, and these gaps point out to an urgent need for stronger labor data systems, proactive workers registrations. Finally, self-employment categories would strengthen policy design and protection. This can be done by identifying gig and platform workers in national service and చెప్పి few highlights చెప్తున్నారు. This is all about it. A spark to drive India's ELCV transition, light commercial vehicles. So whenever your online orders are delivered, he started with a statement saying there is a good chance that they traveled in light commercial vehicle. So the small trucks that are backbone of India's booming e-commerce economy. Here, a fact he mentioned, while India has spent years regulating passenger car energy consumption, LCVs have operated in a regulatory blind spot. So, India has made significant strides in regulating fuel efficiency per passenger cars through corporate average fuel efficiency norms. But LCVs operate without such mandates despite their high utilization and substantial market prices. So policymakers finally addressing this regulatory gap in the late July 2025, Bureau of Energy Efficiency unveiled a fuel consumption standard proposal for these LCVs which will run from 2027 through 2032. So ఇక్కడ ఏం చెప్తున్నారు, the proposed fuel efficiency norms for these LCVs could create or become a turning point with smart policy design, stringent standards and strategic use of incentives. So ఇక్కడ ఈ gap how they are going to fulfill as well as what are the other observations given by the Bureau of Energy and Efficiency ఒకసారి చూసుకోవాలి. And he also mentioned about PM E-Drive scheme which excluding LCVs through some state policies such as those in Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh provide support to overcome the initial acquisition bar. So when you are coming up with this, the very gap should have to be addressed and it has to be should not be widened. It has to be addressed. This is what he's saying. He is again giving few examples of chicken and egg problem, and there he is talking about draft proposal introductions and Bureau energy efficiency proposals, and finally what is the bottom line, how it can be put into phase, and alternative is repeat the challenges seen in the passenger cars, what can be done so these LCVs drive the transition to clean transport and the discussion చేశారు. That's it, nothing more than that. And Trump's strategy to keep pushing carcass can only lead to a breaking point. ఇక్కడ వెనజులా గురించి మాట్లాడుతూ they are talking about unfolding Venezuela is naked imperialism, having ordered the abduction of sitting head of the state and imposed a naval blockade on a sovereign nation. US Donald Trump declared that Washington would now run Venezuela. ఇది మనం ఆల్రెడీ మాట్లాడాం. It's all about power politics and taking control over Venezuela and Venezuela's oils and resources అని ఇక్కడ అదే మాట్లాడుతున్నారు. So Trump's administrative approach might appear contradictory and it is not at all welcoming, and which was not about only democracy or narcotics, it's about complete taking control over the Venezuela ani ikkada inkoti kuda chepparu. When the whole world is talking about Russian taking over power over Ukraine ainappudu, how can you be calm and silent when US is doing this to Venezuela ani? As well as they have talking about peace gestures, oil trade, political prisoners, etc. When Russia violated Ukrainian sovereignty, international community condemned it and imposed sanctions. But when Trump is doing this, Donroe Doctrine threatens not just Venezuela, but the foundation of the international order. It has to be immediately addressed. If it remains unchallenged internationally, no nation in the global south is safe and chippy. Here they have given few cost of occupations, chaos, regime changes, ivanni kuda. This is all about that only. And this one is related to manufacturing woes. Capital support alone will not add to battery cell manufacturing capacity. Recent ga manam oka article chadivamu related to production linked incentive schemes regarding this manufacturing sector, especially in బ్యాటరీ సెల్స్ అని. సో ఇక్కడ ఏం చెప్తున్నారంటే ఇండియాస్ క్వెస్ట్ టు ఇన్స్టాల్ 500 gigawatt నాన్ ఫాసిల్ ఫ్యూయల్ కెపాసిటీ బై 2030 ఏదైతే ఉందో విచ్ హ్యాస్ ఫౌండ్ ఇట్స్ ప్రైమర్లీ ఇండస్ట్రియల్ engine in the PLI scheme. Beyond by the momentum, the scheme generated in telecom manufacturing, where the government pays out a predetermined sum only if companies achieve agreed sales targets annually. So here they mentioned about few challenges, few still what can be done, policy hindrances emunnai, what are the other challenges in developing this manufacturing sector, how they are dependent upon China and what China is doing and other nations చెప్తూ technology relevant intensive parts of the value chain ఏముంది, ఈ వేఫర్ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ సెక్టర్లో ఏం జరుగుతుంది, గ్రీన్ టెక్నాలజీ గ్లోబల్ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ హబ్గా ఇది ఏం జరుగుతుంది చెప్తూ స్కీమ్ రెలవెంట్గా బ్యాటరీ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్కి ఏదైతే లాస్ ఉన్నాయో ప్రోగ్రెసెస్ ఉన్నాయో మెన్షన్ చేస్తూ కాంప్లెక్స్ ఇన్ఫ్రాస్ట్రక్చర్ విచ్ రిక్వైర్డ్ టు మేక్ ఇట్ ఎ స్కేల్ రిక్వైర్స్ డికేస్ ఆఫ్ రీసెర్చ్ ఇన్ కార్పొరేట్స్ అని చెప్తూ దే హ్యావ్ గివెన్ ఫ్యూ అబ్జర్వేషన్స్ అండి. ఇట్స్ సెల్ఫ్ ఎక్స్ప్లెనేటరీ, జస్ట్ గో త్రూ ఇట్స్ వన్స్ అగైన్, దట్స్ ఇనఫ్. ఈ ఫ్యాక్ట్స్ ఏదైతే ఉన్నాయో 18,000 crore, 2.8% of gigawatts targeted capacity has been commissioned, all these things just go through if you want to, that's it. And this is related to the solution to the falling rupee lies in diplomacy. See, recently you have done a lot of discussions about this falling rupee since April ending, because the sudden decline in the value of the rupee has somewhat shaken the world, people and the markets. They wonder why this is happening when the economy is doing well and we are showing the GDP growth rate etc, low inflation undi, modest current account deficit undi, and growth rate still estimated at 7.4%, inflation subdued with CPI inflation, but still this rupee is falling. Why? So RBI lower targeted band for the fourth consecutive month and current account deficit is a percentage of GDP and fall in the value of this rupee since April 25 is about 6%. So since the trade deficit, mercantile ఇవన్నీ మాట్లాడుతూ all capital outflows are hitting the rupee, these outflows will continue to take place until the India and US come to an outstanding understanding, as well as the reasons like tariffs and these capital inflows and other additional 25% tariffs etc which was imposed by US are the few. So diplomatic platform ఏదైతే ఉందో they have to come up and instead of focusing on weaponized these tariffs, utilizing these tariffs as a weaponized for geopolitical reasons, diplomacy is the major route for solution అని చెప్పి here he is talking about devaluation is not the remedy, as well as diplomacy has to be taken. What are the beneficial effects and other currency manipulation, inflation e perspective matladi, value in the fall in the value of rupee in the last 1 month has been caused by fears endangering by the imposition of this 50% tariffs adi cheppi what is hitting the rupee as of now are definitely capital outflows. So how it can be taken care of, trade negotiators must reach an understandings ivanni cheptunnaru. It's again comprises lots of analysis and what RBI is doing, what Indian government is doing, what these non-economic pressures are doing. So what about the value of the rupee, in fact how it can appreciate ivanni kuda dimensions icharu. That's it, nothing more than that. And yes, here at summit European Union asked India to put pressure on Russia to involve, says KHAZANA. As I already mentioned, they are going to sign this free trade agreement and a strategic defense partnership will announced kada. So are part of that whatever the discussions they have done, they are given here the highlights, how they concluded historic FTA and what the ambitious FTA highlights agreement ఇప్పుడు already మనం ఏదైతే చెప్పామో it's a kind of continuation of that, and they also discussed about the global challenges అది ఇచ్చారు. That's it. And this is something related to acquire auction assets of acid attackers to pay victims. ఇక్కడ సుప్రీం కోర్ట్ ఏం చెప్తుందంటే క్లియర్ గా reformative approach has no place for acid attackers and lowest strata of the society with hardly any assets in their name, those who come up with ante those who are the attackers, sometimes they comes from the very lowest strata of the society where they are not able to give the compensation or the amount ex gratia compensation to the victims. So at that time you acquire the property, auction the asset, and from there you give it to the victims pay, because last time మనం ఒక ఆర్టికల్ చదివినప్పుడు చెప్పాము where the victim said that she has been fighting the case since 16 years and nearly 25 surgeries she has gone through. What about the mental and physical pain she is passing and losses a sense of identity etc. అప్పుడు మనం మాట్లాడినప్పుడు ఇది క్లియర్ కట్ గా మాట్లాడాం. ఇట్స్ ఎ కంటిన్యూషన్ ఆఫ్ దట్. సో ఎక్స్ట్రాడినరీ ప్యూనిటివ్ మెజర్స్ విచ్ ఆర్ బియాండ్ ద లెటర్స్ ఆఫ్ ద లా హ్యాస్ టు బి టేకెన్ కేర్ ఆఫ్, అండ్ మోస్ట్ ఇంపార్టెంట్లీ దే షుడ్ ఫియర్ టు డూ దిస్ అండ్ దిస్ షుడ్ నాట్ బి టేకెన్ యాజ్ ఏ గ్రాంటెడ్. అండ్ డౌరీ డెత్స్ ఎలా అయితే యూ కన్సిడర్ ఇట్ యాజ్ ఏ మేజర్ ఛాలెంజ్, యూ కన్సిడర్ దీస్ ఆల్సో అని చెప్పి మాట్లాడి ఫైనల్లీ హీ సేయింగ్ దిస్ పనిష్మెంట్ షుడ్ బి వెరీ స్ట్రిక్ట్ and punishment would not act as a deterrent against future attacks, especially on young women and children ani Supreme Court cheptundi. That's it. And this is related to oil and gas sector eyeing $100 billion in investment, says PM. ఏదైతే ఇండియాస్ ఆయిల్ అండ్ గ్యాస్ సెక్టర్ ఈజ్ ఐయింగ్ టు స్కేల్ $100 billion in investment by the end of this current decade. In the energy week, India Energy Week in Goa, which is going on, he is saying India is aspiring to expand the exploration, and it is with this thought that more than 170 blocks have been awarded in the past, and Andaman Nicobar is going to become our next big hydrocarbon hope అని చెప్పి. సో ఇండియా ఎనర్జీ వీక్ ఏదైతే ఉందో విచ్ ఇస్ బీయింగ్ హెల్డ్ ఇన్ గోవా దిస్ ఇయర్ ఇస్ అ ఫ్లాగ్షిప్ కాన్ఫరెన్స్ ఆఫ్ ద కంట్రీస్ ఆయిల్ అండ్ గ్యాస్ సెక్టర్ కొలాబరేటింగ్ స్టేక్ హోల్డర్స్ ఫ్రమ్ బోత్ ఇండియా అండ్ అవుట్ సైడ్ ఫర్ అగ్రిమెంట్ కన్సల్టేషన్. దట్స్ ఇట్, నథింగ్ మోర్ దన్ దట్. వాట్ ఆర్ ద టార్గెట్స్? బై 2050 the world will have 5.6 billion air conditioners, up from 1.6 billion too. So the 2 new units sold every second for every next 30 years observed, and they are come up with few observations, and what really seeing play out is energy addition. Finally few collaborations, significant potentials emerging strong in the area of energy fuels chepparu. That's it. So these are all about today's the Hindu current affairs analysis andi. Veetiki relevant mains questions ni frame chesi I'll post and I'll give model answers too. If you have any queries or if you want to discuss anything or if you need any guidance, you can drop a message andi. Team Disc will always be available to support sincere preparation. And do well, prepare well, study well. Have a fantastic day. Thank you so much.